Hey, what's good everybody? Welcome to the channel. My name is Alckemy. Today, you and I are going to be talking about week 1 of doing this whole shebang. Now, I'm not going to break this into specific categories, but I think that this video in particular will kind of show you the approach that I'm trying to use in order to cultivate. So first of all, if you're watching this video, we're going to be doing this stuff from scratch, sans the drums. I just made them in Superior Drummer. I've got videos on my masterclasses about how we make sounds like this. But I want to talk about the approach and the mindset and the philosophy while I work on bass sounds, which will also coincide with the Faceplant Chronicles that I think will tie things in together. But I really want to just kind of tell you where my head's at with this cultivation thing, because while I think that I'm relatively good at making heavy sounds and making cool stuff, putting it into context when it comes into making things work within drum and bass are very difficult, and for many reasons. The biggest is because you're working at a much faster tempo, and the other thing is that you have to be so consistent, as some of my mentors say, with the sounds that you have. Everything has to sound like it's on the same playing field, and so you can't have crazy dynamics, you can't have really wild sounds with stuff until you have a really solid groove. So let's pretend like I have, an 8-bar loop, say book, 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 book. All of the work here that I'm going to be doing, as opposed to exploration, is actually going to be relatively intentional. Sort of. I am going to be fishing around for things, but I am also more so concerned about trying to focus on everything that I have taught you up to this point about building bass movement, building movement within your tracks, and figuring out how to do that. And so I want to show different levels about how this can scale while I'm working on something. The other thing is that I'm not going to make a drum beat first. I'm actually going to start with a bass line. And I think that what I'm going to be doing first before anything else is practicing audiation, because there's kind of like this, I want to say like a checklist of a workflow that you can build in which to practice this. And if anybody has your own workflow about how you do things, like I know that some people are going to want to do drums first before they start thinking about putting basses and stuff over this. The biggest challenge that I have with this endeavor is making a bass line that sounds like it fits well together. I'm going to be focused more so on texture, and that's another difficult thing, because if you're doing like liquid drum and bass or anything melodic, then it's so much easier to make it work because it's immediately more catchy. But when you're talking about things that are less tonal and more so focused on, like a really cool timbre, a really cool riff, in my personal opinion, everything needs to sound pristine. It needs to sound much bigger, and this really puts me at an honest look in the mirror with how good or bad my sound design is. And hopefully this will expose some of your strengths and weaknesses about what it is that you're doing, especially if you write drum and bass. So with that being said, here are the drums that I just made right before I turned record on this video. You can see that I've spaced out the hats, and we've just got a lot of different stuff that we can utilize now to pull out from Rolling Sampler. And so let me do that one more time so that way I can pull it out in one consistent thing. Dope. So now that we have these drums, these aren't final. So for whatever reason, when I put these together, if they're not working well together or something, then I can always do something different. But what I might do is it might be wise to actually take this snare and to place it on, say, let's start at 33, because that would be like where we would drop something, right? But what we'll do is we'll set it here. So boom, sorry, here, boom. And then all we really need to do is kind of just keep that here. So there's lots of different kinds of drum and bass that we can do, and we're going to be working within just a 1-bar section for now. So this is actually 2 bars because we're working at 85, and so double time that would be 2 bars. So really we only need to come up with like a 4-bar loop or something of the sort. But now that we have this snare, we can do other things as well that I will say, but again, I want to kind of steer away from making a beat. This is just something to help us keep the tempo about, like, there's going to be a snare on one of these. So now that we have that, we can open up Faceplant, which we'll get into the movement piece of this, and we need to start with nothing, right? I do have a saw wave. I'm going to turn this up just a little bit, and hopefully this doesn't give feedback into the mic, but the biggest thing is that we want to start with some kind of movement or some kind of phrase. And so I'm just going to listen to the metronome on here, and I am going to play around perhaps with 4 different bars and try to audiate some kind of phrases. And what's really important about this is not like trying to make this exact, but just thinking about different pieces of rhythm that I can utilize with this. So hold on one second. Sorry, I wasn't recording. Let me try that one more time. So there's an idea right there, right? We can move that over to the side, and then we can do something. I don't know. I've been on this craze of like this dotted rhythm of like dot 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 dot, and you know, if we can just create something that sounds cool with that piece of movement and have a good downbeat bass, then we'll kind of be on the right track to making it sound whatever, making it sound like it's going to work anyways. And then what we can also do is like think about creating a variation of that or something. So so, you know, something like that. I think I'm going to go with the first idea, and you can do this as many times as you want to, but now at least with this, even though like it's a little bit out of time, I have a guide, right? Because this is going to help me stay focused on what to build. So for example, this little guy right here is our downbeat bass. And so maybe the first thing that we want to start with whenever we're doing this is soloing this. We can turn off the metronome for now. And now we need to start with a note. I'm going to go with D sharp or E flat, depending on how nerdy you are. Yeah. And what we need to do is create something that's kind of percussive and something that's going to be relative to what it is that we're trying to accomplish. Now, one thing that I'm going to try to be mindful of, because silence with the groove is so important, at least like, hold on, I'm taking you all with me and just giving you what I know. It's really important that you understand that I am using this as an approach to practicing, and that this advice is just from like stuff that I know from other genres. So when it comes into all of this, take everything I say with a grain of salt. This is all just practice, and that's really all it is. So we got a sound. I suppose if you wanted to, we could just do that, but I think what I'm more kind of in the mood for is making some kind of envelope or curve or something of the sort to create some kind of interesting piece of movement. And so I'm going to make this happen within something like this. And now let's go ahead and toss this through copious amounts of distortion and start to find something that will give us a little bit to work with, because again, it's not really so much about trying to make it perfect right off the bat, but it's like I have this like or whoa, or you know, something of the sort that's like going to be a heavy downbeat. And so we can play with the timing of this with the movement, right? Cool. So let's go ahead and add an envelope now. And we can kind of do the same thing here and maybe pitch this down. So, right? And now with this, we can start to utilize some aspect of play, because coming into this, we can start to add different harmonics using the harmonic series. So maybe something like this. Cool. That's nice. Okay, so now we can actually characterize this, and because we have this movement, we can focus on creating different aspects of this. And really, like, the reason why I'm doing this from scratch is for, well, to tackle a couple of things. The first is that because I'm wanting this to be extremely intentional, and the reason why I need it to be intentional is because I feel like there needs to be a matter of precision in order to make this seem like it's anywhere close to being believable. So the second thing is that once we have something like this, we can actually utilize it to create different, how do you say it? We can use it to create different variations of this. So essentially I can put all my focus into designing one bass, and then when I duplicate this, I can make different variations of it in which to you know, come over. And this is totally different than what I usually do, which is, you know, make a riff and then sound design to it without any intention or whatever. But this is, to me, this is the one genre that's like, okay, if you're a good sound designer, then you need to show it. Unless if you're like doing this on Splice or whatever, which is totally fine if that's not your deal. But that, I don't know, to me, whatever gets the job done. But like, I want to be like, I made that 100%, you know. This is my own philosophy, but okay, that's pretty sick. So maybe something else that we could do is utilize a wavetable or something. And something else I'm going to do is turn this guy on. If you don't have, you likely do not have an analog heat, and that's totally fine. But if you have some kind of disk tube culture or some kind of analog emulation, this is going to do wonders for you, because check this out. Analog heat plus effects. The thing is, like, I love Faceplant. You guys know that Faceplant is my favorite. I do feel like it does lack in power. It's got tons of means of distortion. It's got tons of means of sound generation and stuff, but there's just something about it, you know, analog warmth, call it what you want, that just doesn't quite do it for me. But check this out. We can mess with this a few times whenever this decides to catch back up. And come on. Come on. You know you want to. You know you want to. Come on. There we go. Takes a second to latch, but turn the level up, turn this up. Now with this compressor, you can see here that that's being turned down by quite a bit. We want 0 attack, 0 release, probably turn this up by a little bit. You don't need to do this, any of these steps, just toss an analog distortion model on this, but for me this is kind of the workflow that you gotta. As you can see, we've got a nice chunky waveform right there. We can also do something if we want to where we can utilize this to create an LFO. So we could go to the heat here and turn this on. Oops, no. And what we could utilize this with is turning this guy on. We can turn the resonance on like this and set an envelope depth here and go to the modulation source. Set this here. And then we're going to set this here, multiplier. Set that to 8. Now it's not syncing up, but that's okay. Sometimes it's worth kind of just messing around with and seeing if we can. It's kind of cool actually. We might be able to use that for something else. So we can start pulling stuff out for one. We don't need all of that. But I'm going to back off of this and just kind of keep this here and turn that back off. Yeah, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. Super nice. So nice and fat. Now let's go ahead and like make some variations to this, perhaps, that we can utilize this to. That's pretty cool. Now what happens if we So what happens if we Nope. something that I learned that's really cool is we're going to try it on a multi-pass first and see how this works. But this is like a trick that I've been trying to figure out for a long time. But if you listen to this with this flanger, you can hear that it's kind of there, right? But if you set the spread to 0 and mess with the feedback on here, now the flanger should be a lot more prominent. So we can utilize that to create some distortion. And now, after all of that, we can start thinking about different ways to spread the signal out. Cool. So now maybe what we can try is adding a fuse compressor on here. Let's clip it. Let's grab this. And what I want to do is just pull this down. Maybe pull this down. And with this, you know, these are just a lot of different variations that we can kind of utilize within this. So we can kind of backtrack as well and just kind of focus on a couple of different things with this. So maybe something that we can try is pushing all of this on the end. Now you see how we're still getting lots of noise over that? Over that top end, we can maybe utilize this to create more movement. And then what we can do is we can go back to the analog heat and back off of the dirt. So maybe we can keep this here and just And now what I'm doing is I'm just trying to find different ways of utilizing this. Like, that's cool. We still want that to be lower. Huh. Crazy. Why not do a couple? Why not grab one of these guys and So now that we have something like that, we can kind of pull that out and then utilize that here, and we can make that a different color. We'll label it red. And really what I'm trying to do with this is to just make some crazy boom, do, 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 do. Yeah, make some kind of crazy sound that is going to kind of play along with this. So now I can make a change to this, right? And I can utilize this and play this in triplets. So if I were to hold this, go like this, let's solo this. That's kind of sick. But what we can play with now is different aspects of like changing the filter or something, or that's really cool. I like that a lot. So So what I'm trying to do now is just mess around with this and see if there's a way that I can pull this out a little bit more. And something that might be cool too is grabbing an envelope like this and doing something from here to where it starts really fast and then slows down. So like a, maybe something like this. So creating something else that's kind of in that world of neuro or something, we can utilize this with a little bit of pitch bend. So like a, that was really cool. So we can utilize that to kind of replace something there. And then we can also continue to make variations out of this, right? So as cool as that was, maybe what I can utilize this for is a macro or something and just see what that sounds like. So I can move this up all the way. So maybe something else that would be good too is to grab the gain here and maybe leave just a little just a little bit of sustain here. But what we can do is pull this back up to, I think it's like -9 or something, but you see how that kind of changes the nature of the sound? Now, I'm not really sure, is there something else that's being played at the same time? No. But you can hear how that's kind of changing the nature of this by quite a bit, so now, something else that we can try is utilization of another thing here. So it would be kind of cool to maybe use this to maybe sweep this down. Yeah. Maybe not all the way, but that's so cool. Okay, maybe we can also utilize a comb filter and do the same thing. Maybe we could like sweep that there, and then we can attach this macro on the bottom to this guy and see what that does. Now, for some reason, I hear something that's sustained, so yeah, okay. We can also like, I want this window to stay here the whole time. No, yeah, okay, there we go. Yeah, so you see how we just got like a bunch of different phrases there, right? We can utilize that in a lot of different ways to try to pull it out. And that's why I don't, like, sometimes you might see me try to just leave all these in MIDI. Sometimes you might see me try to like resample all of these or whatever and pull them out, but it depends. Like, that was nice. And so we can kind of work with that, and then we're gonna get ready to kind of combine all of these together here in just a minute. But what we can also do is we can try different sounds like this. So like, let's say we want to combine a respace with something like this, and we could take this off, so like a So that one was kind of cool. And the cool thing about this is that even though I've got these guys kind of coming within these sounds, right? We've got all these different phrases of this that have a bunch of different like small changes in the waveform, because even if you look at this, like you can't tell like just glancing at it, but if you look closely, see how this tail is different than this tail. So every single one of them is just a little bit different. And you know, I'm having fun with kind of just making these different phrases or whatever, but within this knock or whatever that we're utilizing, sometimes creating like just percussive basses and like different sounds in general. Because the other thing too is that even though I'm using this as a bass, like you can create other different metallic sounds from lots of different ways. For example, we can utilize this as a delay. Actually, let me see what this sounds like on its own. And in theory, if I'm not mistaken, this, sorry, see what's going on here, but yeah, you see we don't really have much side information on that low end, so we can actually utilize this and take out everything on the sides, which I probably should have done beforehand, but yeah, but sending that through and being like, okay, well, let's see what that sounds like with the heat. Sounds like nothing. No device selected. What do you mean? I didn't change anything. Okay, let's try that one more time. See if we can get that back up and rolling. No device selected. If I turn this off, it's probably going to crash the audio. But what happened there? Yep. Yeah, so let's give it a couple minutes. This is a good time to say, hey, if you like my sounds, then check out alckemy.com or book a lesson with me. See what we can do from there. Yeah, it's just give it a second. Actually, what I probably should do to expedite this is to go to the audio, go none. Okay, now let's go volt, apply now, and then let's see if this will fix that, because for some reason, yeah, there we go. Yes. Every time I turn off the analog heat, it, or every time I delete the analog heat, it always crashes the system. Let's try that again. Analog heat. Maybe. It's thinking. Alright. Nope. Yes. No. What? What is going on? Alright, that sucks. Activate. Sorry, guys. We ready? We're not ready. Alright, so this is going to do that again. I'm just going to leave it off because that's not going to happen, but we can use like disk tube or something. So let's grab le disk tube culture and grab something here. Now you can hear that like the upper harmonics of this are already like pretty bitey, so we might not actually even want to drive this that hard. But what I do want to do is try to get the bias here, which I believe this is, let's just say negative bias and positive bias. Actually, they're all positive, but this goes into the bottom of the waveform, this goes into the top of the waveform. But keeping this relatively consistent is part of why you might want to adjust this. That's also kind of cool. Shit, alright, well, we can pull that out. Whatever. That's kind of cool. Let's grab that from the rolling sampler and just grab this freaking insane waveform. We can do something cool with this later. For example, we can just like set this into like a beats mode like this, and then do like 1 30-second. It's not all that interesting, but I think with a little bit of love and, oh no, is that going to destroy this as well? We'll find out. I better save this before this crashes. We'll just call this day one. But if I hit cancel, as you see here, it's likely to crash Bitwig because I know that's a thing, but we'll see if that catches up. It doesn't look like it's going to, or maybe I just need some time to think. I'm on an M3 Max and we're running into this problem. So there's some goofiness at bay here. Saving plugin states. Oh, it's you. It's you. All right. Yes. Please just bounce the thing. Bounce with me. Bounce with me. Okay. That did not do the thing, but did we at least get one? We did. All right. That's all we need. No sweat. We can fix that later. So coming back into this and maybe getting some different variation. I mean, if we think about it, or if we play this back, did I record over it? I may have. But no, it's right here, doofus. We've got a very simple. Okay, so like if we have a downbeat bass or whatever, which I'm sure that we made at some point in here, I think, which was, you know, then we can start to get into this and you know, we could even do something like this to where we've got a triplet here. And we want to create a dotted rhythm. And maybe we can add some silence here, so that way now we're into the idea about creating phrases, right? Because we're creating a call and we're creating a response. And so what we can do here is maybe make this a little bit more percussive. I need to listen to the low end of this and see if that actually even has sub. It does not. So what that tells me is that we might even be able to utilize this and just use this later as an accent. But what we can do is pretty much use the same placement of this into one of these guys. So we can try that. And all we have to do is go place. That's pretty close. And go like this. And go boom, 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 boom. Darn, darn. Then we go +1, +2, +3, minus +1. Just do something weird. So now that we have something like that, we can start to change different stuff about this too. Because now that we have this simple call and response, we're coming full circle. Here we go. 3/4, right? We can go, I'm going to do this for you, but we can go insert Q marker, rename A, insert cue marker. B, if you recall the last videos that I've been keeping up with, and if you haven't watched it, please go watch all my other stuff. Same thing here. We can go insert cue marker. We can go maybe A. Enter. Same thing. Insert cue marker. Now on this, we could go C. Now, if we were to pull this into the drums here, and I don't even have my beat yet, but which is fine. We just have this snare within the fundamentals, and then we've also got a sidechain set up. Maybe we can turn that off. So, okay, so one thing that we can do on there, because I think it would be kind of cool, is to just grab this guy, and with this we'll put this on here and see what that sounds like. Maybe 12, 16. Okay. Let's add some kind of delay here, or sorry, envelope. And we can utilize this to move this here and set this macro to kind of move down, up. Okay, that's pretty cool. I really oh, that's probably why, is because there's multiple instances of these. Ew, that would make sense. So okay, so with this, really want the high end of this to be a little bit brighter. And then what might be also kind of cool is to group all of these. And this is where like the hard part comes in, because you know, we've got a stupid phrase. Look, you guys, I don't think that this is any good. I don't think that this is something that I'm like, oh man, this is sick. But just as a matter of practice, like we are making a call and response, and we are making something that has a phrasing, right? We're coming up with phrases, and how well we can phrase is definitely a part of it. And I don't think that, like I said, any of this is compelling, but it is a means of practice, and that's kind of what the point of this is. But maybe we can spread this out just a little bit. That's cool. Now for this in particular, I'd really like the low end to kind of pop out a little more. So what I think is happening is that because we have 3 of these being boosted, it sounds to me like we're running into some kind of intermodular distortion. And what might be kind of cool with this is to make this seem like it's going to knock a little bit more. So like a... So maybe we can adjust this to be a little bit tighter. Now you hear all that stuff that's happening. Maybe what we can do is we can utilize something on that top end to, well, actually, let's just see what that sounds like. Okay, that sounds pretty cool. Maybe we can also have something tie that in to be a little bit more consistent as well. So again, like, I'm happy with the sounds. The sounds themselves are cool, but the execution of this is the practice that I think that is something that needs to be worked on. So, but I mean, yeah, we've got a starting point now with the snare, and then everything else can kind of fall in line. So and then right here, I feel like there needs to be some kind of really sick sound that's like, so like a, so why don't we design that and set this to opposite. Wait a second. New. Noodly new. Let's create a duplicate of this. Make this a different color. So I don't know, I'm more color coded than anything. I could rename it or rename something like this, but yeah, by the way, if you guys liked the video, if you're enjoying this, I would love it if you liked the video by hitting the thumbs up button. So maybe maybe 25, because I want it to be one semitone higher than, maybe more, maybe 23. Yeah. That's starting to sound cool. So that's tight. I'm actually going to keep this because this could be something that might be interesting as well, but we can utilize this to, so now we've got so now that we have something like that, we can start to play around with different means of coloring this sound, because I want it to sound like very phasey and kind of lasery almost. So we might shoot for something like this. Maybe not that much. Also, I just want that. So, and maybe what we can also do is switch this to a really wide notch. So that made it sound like a little bit more smeared. I want this to be pretty technical. What happens if I do this as well? Because we don't need this to be a bass. We need this to be something that is just going to be contrasting to the low end. That's pretty cool. Oh! That's fucking cool. Okay, so that little throw is what we'll call it. Is really cool, but I want this to sound a little bit more like dry and upfront. Because there's a tail end on this, and we need to back off of that. So I want it to be like, maybe I'll just put a gate on it. And then maybe what I'll also do is play around with the different, like I'll take these and turn this down for a second. And we'll just start here and see what we can get out of this. So we still have that crazy mid harmonic right there, or low mid harmonic. Oi. Sorry. Glad I caught that early. Yeah, okay. So we need to find another way that we can utilize the sound that we've cultivated here. And like 3 is not the magic number. It's just something that I don't know, it just works sometimes. But maybe what we can do is pull some of this stuff up. So maybe pull back on some of this. Or maybe something else that we could try is that same trick that I was talking about, but maybe grab a different kind of flanger. And again, I'm not really so worried about like the low end or any of this stuff because sorry. Yeah, not worried about the low end of this stuff because wait. Okay. So that's pulling that out. It's just meant to be a texture thing. So what happens if I add another fuse compressor at the end of this? And this is the consistency part that I'm talking about, because the way that I want this to sound is like I want everything to be big. We only have a snare coming over this because as you can see, like I'm prioritizing the space of this phrase. But within this, the mix of this and the cohesiveness of all this needs to kind of fit within the same world. And so one thing that I'm going to try is to actually throw a saturator on here, sorry, a clipper, and set this to 2. And then set this to -2, so that way everything is going to be like, there are different dynamics within this, but Sorry, that made no sense. Set everything to -2 so that nothing goes past -2 decibels. But something with this is that not all of these are the same, you know, are the same dynamics anyways. And so that's part of making this shit work, which is very difficult. So this looks pretty okay. But with this guy, now we can do something with this, like a frequency shifter. Actually, something that we can do for that C part is pitch this up. And you hear how there's that bottom of it? Yeah. So something else that we can consider is maybe utilizing a frequency shifter or something. And just kind of seeing what that sounds like. So I'm not really worried so much about, like, maybe we can use like a what is it? A blur? Because this is just meant to be a layer. So let's see how cheesy this sounds. Maybe for this one, we can do on the C part, we can grab the other sounds that were really cool. Sorry, something's in my nose. I can set that phrase up. So I think that we wanted to that one's okay. There's more. So with this, we can kind of just play around with this, and you know, maybe this doesn't work out, or we can utilize this more so as an effect or something, but maybe we can kind of do something. Yeah, so something that we can do on this perhaps is pull out another notch filter. Just a regular filter, and then we can kind of do this by hand if we wanted to. So maybe that might be the best way to do this, but I might just go like this, grab this, move this over to this guy, grab that, see where this clicks right here. No. Yes. Yeah, yes. And then you can see that it's kind of slowing down, so we can kind of just place this on top of itself. And it doesn't need to be like that precise, but I figure that this would probably take a very similar amount of time if I were to do this by hand, or sorry, like try to set up an LFO that goes from fast to slow, as you can see. So, and then we can also like scale these to different degrees of how much we want this to come into play. But like, as you can see, it's not really precise, but it's close. So. But you see how much cooler that made that? So maybe what we can do is listen to this without it. So and what would happen if we So anyways, let's go ahead and finish this bad boy up, because I think that we kind of got the point here. But as a first go, and even though this is something that I don't really like, it's still cool because we got some practice in. Now for some reason, this sidechain needs to be a little bit longer, I think. There we go. We can do like a boom boom. Maybe something here, so like a. So now we're creating a call and response with the kicks because we're kind of leaving the snares alone. And then we can start to shape the groove with everything else. So let's go ahead and open this up into the pork. That's not what I meant to do. This one. We're just going to have this over every one. So I hear a little thing right there, so I'm going to post a little skippy doodah right there because I think that would be cool to help accentuate that groove. But as you can hear, now that we have a relationship, and when I say relationship, it's not a very strong one, but there are certain placements on here that I'm trying to fill in the silence and like create different types of. So yeah, fill in different kinds of silence or different places to fill the gaps or something. But as you can see, what we can do is place something right there. And we can also start to do different things like this to where we kind of make this a little bit shorter. And then we can create different pitches with this in order to create a shuffle. So, you know, the more staccato, the better. These already have really good transients, so we can even turn them down if we need to, but cool. So what I'm going to do here is just have these move down this way. And then now we get into the elaboration stage because we also got some other drums that we can work with as well, but maybe something that we can do with this is put this on every 2, and then we can use this as a crash. Let's turn that way down. So we can use this as a shuffle. What I would want to do is probably this. There we go. It's not quite a roller, but again, I'm just going to move this over here and just try to play with that, see what that does. And this is kind of a cool little click, I guess. So something's up with this kick, which I'm not really happy about, but it's okay. But it's got a little bit of a balance. Let's see if that works better. We can also try a transient control on this and see if maybe we can pull this back. I want that to be really... Now you see how that's like kind of sounding flabby? So, oh, that could be part of it. Let's go ahead and throw a saturator on this and see if we can clip that. It sounds okay here, but whenever this gets into this... Let's try there. Let's try here. No. Let's try this. So what happens if I... do something like this, and we toss this here, and we go like this. Let's pull this to another track. Set this to repitch. I don't know, just something cool. Something else that we can do is we can just use like a... What the heck? Just a solid sub right there, I feel, as a layer. So I don't know if this is going to work or not, but let's try. A little bit of distortion. But yeah, I mean, the big thing that I'm trying to go for when I'm writing this kind of stuff is just attitude. I really just want this to have just a fucking attitude problem. And sometimes getting that right is really difficult, but this is part of the 30-day thing that I would probably spend with. Like, we've been at it an hour, so I wouldn't say that I've done this from scratch, but once I had the drums, then we started doing everything else from scratch. But, you know, at least just starting a track, this should hopefully give you some kind of insight with where you can go, and how to kind of make something like this. But I don't know, like I said, I don't really feel like any of this is working well together, but at the same time, like, with a little bit of refinement of intention perhaps, and really just practice at the sounds and making stuff big and just trying to get everything together, you know, then it could be something that might end up being kind of cool later. Because the thing is like, even though I'm not happy with the sounds, I do think that the placement is okay. And I think that's the most important part, is just getting, you know, because we got a shuffle going. The drums, I knew that the drums would be relatively fine, and they're pretty simple, and we can always do more to it, but I suppose if we wanted to, might be kind of cool to do like a so, and then on every bar we can go I don't know, just trying to hear if this might be kind of cool, but maybe we can. So we can always duplicate that, and then something that I think would be wise, like going forward from this, is to add dynamics to the shuffle. We can add more percussion and stuff later, but just getting up to this point, this is 4 bars, but which we can copy it or whatever and let that play out twice. But this is more so the means of the meat and potatoes of trying to practice what I'm talking about, which is what I don't think that I'm very good at. That being said, let's see if this sub works with this. It might be good to do some kind of pitch envelope along with that, so I'm going to just set this to like 5. But the other thing that we need to be mindful of is that whenever this comes up, check this out. See that 3rd harmonic right there? We could just do this too. That would probably be helpful. There we go. And then we can just grab another one of these guys and then pull that out. So that way, whenever this plays, let's play them together. I can use an EQ on this to take out the, yeah, because this technically has low end in it, so that's what we want. So I want that to be a little bit more staccato. What happens if I use like a, I don't know, just something stupid? Sometimes it could be kind of cool to have something like this because everything else is relatively dry. You know? right there, I'd probably pull off of that second transition or transient. But I mean, yeah. So as a means of doing everything from scratch and practicing this, you know, we can kind of just copy that and whatever. But my next step for you, which maybe I'll cover in week 2 or next week or something, is getting into utilizing this as a starting point and not being so married to it, even though everything is in MIDI. But if we were to just solo everything that's within this sidechain group, send that through tons of effects, infiltrator or whatever, and start resampling and getting some other stuff out of it. You can do the same thing with the drums. You can do the same thing with the entire project. But on this note, it's just kind of something that you could utilize to get up and going. So I'll leave you with this. If you're really keen on just doing the drums first, so let's say we have this drum break, and let's say you're having a really hard time because I don't know, someone out there might think that this is the coolest song ever. I think that it's stupid, but start with movement. And I probably should have said this at the very beginning, which I did at some point, but even if this is all you have, you know, just a touch of distortion, you can still just kind of have something like an LFO and just hit this to like 100% and play this along with your drums. So if we were to kind of do something like this and go like this, it's gonna work. It's not gonna sound great, but I know that it's gonna work. So if we were to solo that, same thing, right? We've got lots of bass now, lots of energy. We could probably do like a third harmonic if we wanted to, or try a seventh harmonic or something, and maybe don't make it go as high. But you see how maybe we can even isolate. So but now that you have something like that, you can so something that you could easily do in order to create a little bit of movement is just something like this. You can do something like that's just like a dotted rhythm or something that's very short and percussive. It doesn't need to be a bass. So we do that, we go copy. Let's add some FM to it. Something like this. We could do something small size, dampen, distortion. And then we can tame that because it's pretty loud. Right? And then something else that we could do is go right click and go make legato. And then just make a crazy train, something like this. And you can see that this trend of how many views I should be getting over the next 2 days should be substantially larger, right? Next time I'll show you a pie chart. But looking at this, you know, something like that. So keep it simple. Don't worry about it too much. Very basic movement can easily kind of get you to where you want to go. But for me, I'm trying to really focus on bringing out my mid basses and my phrasing of this and have confidence. Just I'm developing a bad attitude in all the best ways. So anyways, that's week 1. Hopefully this was helpful to you. Thank you so much for watching. Check out alckemy.com if you like my sounds. Also, if you want a head start on this kind of stuff, Requiem 2 is a great place to kind of get going if you do like to do resampling or something like that. But yeah, good luck with the challenge. I'm going to upload this and then I will be showing you what to do the next time I learn something. Bye.